I'm not joking. There are many primary school teachers. NC. I have a primary school. I learned from them. Today I don't like to employ NC teachers at all. I prefer to take a person with a diploma or go secondary. They have the NC certificate. They cannot solve primary 4 marks. I'm telling you. I'm not joking. But you say the children, you know the African tradition, the big person is never wrong. Those children are not committed. Now we have to be very sincere. What we talk about standards, it's not only standards in learning, it's also standards in teaching, standards in parenting, standards in law enforcement, and so on and so forth. It's a very broad chain. And they all complement and give rise to, we have to establish very objective yardstick for measuring performance. Because if you talk about standards, then you have to go back to the objectives. If you say the standards in the primary school have fallen, fine. Let's go back to the objectives and see where they are not being attained. Then we can specifically map out and say this in this area and this area and this area. The objectives of primary education, basically, our aim there is to infuse in them basic literacy, numeracy. Many of them, as Mr. Gideon said, cannot write a formal letter. They are also so we are failed to attain ability to read and write and spell and compute and so on and so forth, or to add or subtract or multiply and all those arithmetic processes. If it is sincere, there are many people, even in tertiary institutions, teaching, who find it difficult to calculate percentages. I'm telling you, I'm not joking. I've worked on research projects with people that have seen it. You wonder what is really happening. At some point, is that possible? Would they have learned and unlearned gifts of interference? Because in basic psychology, all those transfer of life. I think the problem is we are not sincere with ourselves. And I'll give you a practical example. In the university, we discovered over the years that the quality of the students was going down. When they come, they are not able to cope with the curriculum demands. So we started to complain that look, what is really happening? They have all the O-level grades, they have all other requirements, but when they come, they have difficulties even in note taking, let alone writing exams. So the universities began to complain, and many of them introduced what has today become established, this post-yearly. So after doing a yearly exam, now it's even unified tertiary matriculation exams. The children or the candidates are made to sit another examination set by the universities, by the university faculties. So we sit and set our own examinations. Actually, are we trying to do here? It's like a sieve. A sieve that people use, to sieve out trash. At the primary school level, after that, we are trying sieve and we sieve out some. We go for the final one and we select the best and so on. And then by the time they are ready for university entry, for the university curriculum, we discover that they are not suitable. They have been sent packing at the primary school level where they should have learned all those basic arithmetic processes, and they cannot do it now. Then you wonder what actually is happening. something is very wrong in the society. People say it's corruption. People say it's malpractice. We even have a decree now, Decree 21, that says if you are caught engaging in some compromising acts in exams, you will suffer such and such and such penalties. There are penalties for the head teacher, for the teacher, for the students and others. They are all there spelled out, fines and imprisonment sentences. But all these have not stopped these abuses. So what is happening here? What are standards? If we set up standards and it looks like the society does not believe in those standards, and that is why they are bypassing them, taking shortcuts, then for whom are those standards? It looks like the society does not agree with the standards. Because if a father can fund somebody to go and do exam for his child, if a teacher can help the students in an examination, it means he does not believe in your so-called standards. And what we are showing you is by engaging in contrary behavior that is subverting the enforcement of those standards. That is the reality. In other words, it's the same thing we do. Oh, we kneel down and greet our elders, but behind in our mind we are not actually loyal. It's not a double standard. We don't really believe in it. We are only making a show for it. So for whom are those standards? Because if I'm ready to compromise the standards for the sake of my child, then it means that I don't believe in those standards, but I've been forced to comply. So the first thing we have to do here, if we talk about standards, we have to agree with the standards. Today, this country has become open competition between different parts of the country in terms of admissions, in terms of employment, and so on and so forth. I get the impression that people don't really believe in the system. Then you say, okay, the way out is what? I cannot say it. But a lot of people say it. I'll say with someone who said, look, the only solution is to break up the country. No, that is a very good idea. Yes, it sounds very, very nice. But how do we break it up? We say not south. No, there are many who believe they cannot stay together. If you take the south, say south is for example, there are those who don't like to stay with some people there. The same thing in the north, the same thing in the west. Then the next thing is, let's do it along religious lines. In religion, again, we are divided for selfish interest groups. I'm going to help you, I'm going to help. You're going to help, I'm going to help. That's how we insult each other. They say, no, let's try to along ethnic lines. Again, no, I'm superior to you and inferior to you. Yes, superior to you and inferior to you. That is the mentality. All boiling down to some very weak fundamental reasoning. Some terrible weakness in thinking. And then we'll go back to the ancestral days. If you read the African explorers, people cannot move from one village to another to benefit of humanity. If something will be done to advance humanity in knowledge, we should be able to cooperate with whoever, even if they come from outside this continent. So knowledge is universal, and is the universal heritage of mankind. It doesn't belong to anybody. I would support anybody willing to pursue knowledge, regardless of class, gender, creed, and so on and so forth, and all those sentiments. It's not something you monopolize. And that's why the white man beats us hands down. Let me give you an example. In our traditional society, you know, every family has a role. There are certain families, they are known for their roles in curing elements, medical problems. They may know the answer to a certain sickness, but they never let anybody know the secret. And you have to pay them for that service. So suppose you have a terrible toothache, you go to them, they say maybe you should bring a chicken. And you know, because it's a kind of, you pay for that. And then they give you the cure without telling you what it really involves. Another person comes and goes the same way. But knowledge should be accessible to whoever desires it. After all, today we're in the information age. I don't need to hide what I know. The more I show, the more I'll find out and know. The more it will be available to me. So if you are able to read medicine, or engineering, or mass communication, or whatever, you are welcome once you can do it, regardless of your background. Education is a right. And that's what the United Nations Universal Human Rights Declaration is, 1948. All that is in 42A. It says this is the right for anybody, every human being, all over the world. It's one of the declarations. So I don't need to hide knowledge. I don't need to hoard it or even abuse it in the name of my own personal interest or sectional interest or group interest. It has reached a point where today the public schools are down, as you said, and some children are taken outside the country for a good education by people you are living amongst. Is that right? So people take their children for a good education in the UK, in the US, and other places, Germany, Australia, and so on. People go for medical. They don't look for their neighbor what they love for themselves. That's the knowledge of it. And we still hold such people in high esteem. In other countries, you do that kind of thing, you destroy the public school system, you refuse to fund it, and then you take your child outside. They will not accept your child. And these are the kind of conflicts we are seeing, but we should be honest enough to admit it. That because I'm the ruler of Egypt today, my child should not be. It's not a family thing. It's a matter of principles and values we are pursuing. So if you look at your standards in education today, even the standards are subjective. It is either students can pass and hold certificates, and today certificates are even being sold. So we must come back and really re-evaluate and assess our standards of thinking before we think of any move. Otherwise, it will be a mockery. People already know it's a mockery. So let's come back and make education the right of all people. And as the Education Act says, let every parent send his child to school. Because if you fail to send your child to school, you are affecting my own future and my own children's future. That's the truth. Because your children who refuse to go to school will be a nuisance to my own children in the future. That's the truth. Just like the white man is telling you. You are going to be a nuisance to us. That's what we come and do. So what do we do? That is the beginning of standards. Not that you refuse to go to school. And then in the end you begin to scramble and compete with others for the same resources people who are here are supposed to get. Then you find people who are really working hard and getting nothing, and people who don't really perform as that thing. So you're undermining the very basis of your development. So come back and evaluate how we reward effort in society. We are not rewarding the right people. You find a very hard-working teacher, barely able to make ends meet, and someone who is actually a nuisance to the society, getting the lion's share of the resources. This is the kind of thing people complain about, and it's the reality. So you have to allow a modern leadership grow, because the whole thing is power game. It is power game, full stop. Some people feel that they are right, they exploit resources, and they are all over this country. When those that are really working hard are getting nothing. Now, let's come back to this issue of standards in education. Ideally as they should be. If you talk about standards, then they are talking about some measures, some standards of performance. I wish I had written something, but the notice I got is not actually requiring me to write anything. So we need to brainstorm, make it very open to loose, so we can really address real life problems as we have them today, in terms of the quality of teaching and learning in our schools. And we must be able to address the problems and stop deceiving ourselves. You go to states and you hear the government say education is free in the schools. But all the children have no textbooks in the class. I've seen it. They don't have textbooks in the classroom and they say education is free. He's harming your children. You don't know. He's not helping you. He's helping you to kill yourself. You can say education is free, but parents must buy maths, English, science, and social studies books and so on. Let's face it. We say it's free. And then a child ends up knowing nothing. No textbooks, no writing materials, no nothing, and it's free. So let's address problems as they are and stop deceiving ourselves. And I pray that God Almighty will unite our country and help us to apply our knowledge to better our lives and the lives of humanity. So thank you very much.
You don't even tell the Prof, we are hungry. Because what is telling is free. Is it not true? Prof, thank you very much. You are free to make your comment, to ask questions, to raise issues, and Prof is here to handle them. Let us be mindful of time. Actually, we want to leave this place before or by 1 o'clock. I want to beg the gentlemen of the press to sit here with us. They are not just gentlemen of the press, they are elderly, mature gentlemen of the press. Okay, so if you have anything, you have a question, you have something to raise, you have an issue, whatever, from anywhere, Prof has spoken. And you know, we have professorial professors. This is a professorial professor. So.
My name is Pastor Prince Mullen, KK Fan Club. I want to really appreciate the professor for that well-delivered or in-depth delivery to the subject matter. Mine might be more or less a passing comment, especially based on the issues the Prof have raised. I believe we as a people have indeed misdirected or focused education as a means of gaining admission or having placement in the workplace, in the politics, and everywhere. And these have grossly affected the standard. We have not projected its dedication or knowledge as something that an individual should seek for the sake of knowledge. We have focused education as a means of either getting a placement in one workplace or the other, getting admission, and so we see it as a means to an end. And that is very, very wrong, I must say. And until we as a people begin to redirect this and project education as an element to be desired for the sake of the knowledge one gains when seeking that knowledge. And once we do this, we then begin to project the individual to have this lifetime learning, and then he can go on to sit and read. But if I'll just study and pass my exams, study and get a placement in an institution or in a workplace, it's done. I don't need to study again. I don't need to push further my reading drive or my study drive. So I think our nation needs to look into this more critical and see a way of redirecting it. And again, I must say our reward system here too is faulty. Because think about it. If a child should study very hard, work very hard and pass an exam with good grades, and I'm not able to gain an admission because he's considered to be too knowledgeable and he's being sacrificed on the altar of a quota or whatever for a lesser endowed coach. He may not have the incentive to study again. But if this individual studies, gets good grades, passes his or her exams, and then he's rewarded with that, I think he or she would be encouraged to seek more knowledge. So, Prof, I really would want to agree with you on this, and I want
that you actually talked on many issues. But I want to just put it up to that if you are to advise the government of the day, what will you say? Maybe like in atomizing the points will be the way out, the immediate and the long term out of the present predicament. Then secondly, how will you react to the issue of Boko Haram in the contemporary Nigerian education sector? Thank you.
Mine is some issues. The first one is on policy, language policy. The emphasis on English language in the contemporary education is overemphasized. Are we not doing injustice to the students in the rural and public schools who do not really have a higher or very high proficiency in English language? When I was at Lagos, I was opportune to teach mathematics in a school where the students do not really understand English language. So when I teach, the principal sometimes will come around and translate some keywords like addition, like some keywords that will make this learning more acceptable to the students. So I would suggest, or I would want the professor to react on this. Shouldn't basic Nigerian languages be introduced into the teaching of these students, and even in the teaching of the teachers that will teach them? The second issue is on the NCE program. We have seen that the NCE program is a little bit inadequate because most times teachers come to the schools and cannot deliver. You see an NCE teacher, and then the next thing you ask yourself, can this person really impact knowledge? The scheme, I don't know the problem, it has succeeded in bringing out graduates that are not adequate to what they should do. Then the next issue is on monitoring. The government of the day they give more energy to monitoring the private sector, leaving the public sector to die down. You see, the monitoring of the public schools should also be emphasized, because most teachers in public schools now engage in business and trading, buying and selling. They hardly go to school. When we are at the public schools doing our NYC days, we saw a lot of these things. We have about 100 teachers on ground, and then on the school day, we have about 50 of them doing the work. And then they shift their antenna to these private schools and monitor them very well. And then you see that the private school become more efficient in this teaching business. Thank you very much.
So thank you for these comments. Actually, the whole idea is to share experiences and to have a better understanding of the problems that we face. It is very true that we see education just as an issue of, getting jobs and getting money, and that is one of the biggest problems. And we have to make a lot of effort to change the attitudes of people. And some of us who are educated should show good examples, because some of our attitudes are also, and our behavior are also signals that, make people have the wrong impression and understanding. Well, Baba Martin's independent newspapers, thank you for that. Advising governments, you can't advise, the policies are there, the ideas are all there, let me tell you. We know what is to be done. The will is the problem. I remember one time talking to an education secretary many years ago. I said to him, look, you need to emphasize on the quality of the education in schools. But instead, you people keep talking about fertilizer and all that stuff, He said, yes, we talk about fertilizer and all this because that's what the people want to hear. Anybody in public office or in politics gauges the mood of the public and goes for how to get them on board. So if you emphasize education is a long-term investment, people will not even bother. And for this reason, you part ways with your people. So that is why they keep emphasizing on what the people will hear or what the people want. And that's why they take your money and give people to, for their personal upkeep, rather than engaging in collective protest. Because these are the noise makers, or people who really make a difference in the society. And if you fall out with them, it affects you. So advising governments, the only advice is funding and reducing corruption. That's the truth. Believe me, you hear that a lot of money has been budgeted for something, and in the end nothing gets there. If you go to the real, where the action should be, you find that you don't have the money. So corruption is a major problem, and corruption is part of our culture. Because in our culture, the big person has to eat first before the child. Like in an aeroplane, they tell you to attend to yourself first. In an emergency, before a dependent. So we eat the good one and leave the small ones to others. And this is the culture. Now, corruption, simply because of the public office, you find that most of the resources and the bulk of the resources goes to individuals and interest groups rather than the real development effort. It's something we should really check. If you look at the allowances people are having in National Assembly and other things, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I'm not jealous of anybody. It's not my business, but it affects all of us. You find most of the resources are being diverted to individuals Some of them even undertake unnecessary journeys. Sometimes people with loans, they go and take one bank loan and other loans and begin to travel, floating around, and not really. So this kind of things, but they say the big man actually is in charge. So they feel like, in our African culture, you have to be very respectful. But corruption is something that I believe we will be able to check. Resources allocated so that it must get there. And if they're not there, somebody should be able to account. It's as simple as that. I cannot be a spokesman for Boko Haram, but let me tell you the truth. If you want to solve problems, then you should be honest. The way some of us are behaving, educated people, engaging in corruption and everything, the local people have the right to say we're useless. In fact, we're adding zeros. That's what some of them are saying, that if you write a check, you need some space and add some zeros and steal money. So some of them see us as thieves and rascals and corrupt people. That is just the truth. I'm not supporting them. But some of our behavior is also not exemplary. It's not good. It's not just Boko Haram. A lot of people have lost faith. Like this last crisis, I noticed something that was very funny. People will give it any shape. It started with the PDP, and others. So if you know that the PDP man, they attack you. They attack your house. Then it took another dimension. Everybody has grievances. Then it turns into religion. It turns into tribe. But the very bottom of it that I saw as a psychologist, believe me sincerely, is a matter of house and household. I'm telling you. Because when somebody just smashes your windscreen without even looking at your face, it's just of life. I remember meeting one man, my tires were a bit, pressurized, and I stopped along the road. After 2 days, the things began to stabilize. This man is about 50 years old. He's not a small boy. A local man. This organizers. And I asked him to, I was with my wife, and he said to me, that I'm not supposed to be driving. I should lie down and you drive me. You see, this is a kind of, if you observe, I said to him, no, you see, I'm a teacher, and me, I struggle. It's my father. He is trying to say, you're a chief. Why is something lie down so that people like us to drive you? That's what he's trying to say. You have business money, you get business money. So I said to him, after he has finished everything, I said, okay, how are you going to pay? He said, no, whatever you give me. So I came and keep our back and give him. I said, no, but how will you charge per tire? He said, well, 20 naira. So I brought out the 50 naira note and gave him. He said, thank you. I said, no, give me my change. So you see, there is a lot of problems. Honestly, the whole thing is, it has different colorations. But the bottom line, why are they affecting the people's shops? Because if you have not the whole opening, a whole way, you don't even have a shop. Let alone somebody take something from the shop. The whole thing is, it's economic. Let's face the reality. Let's face it. So we must do something about corruption before this thing bursts on a bigger scale. The whole thing is on envy and jealousy and so on. So if you work hard, you think you're one of them also who is killing. So let's try to show good examples and correct some of these things. And the salaries and allowances of public office holders, they should really reduce. It doesn't make sense. Even in Europe and America, people don't just pack money for that. That's why a lot of rascals and hooligans, people whom you know, I know one boy who went to school, he was our student. He was very dishonest. He didn't speak at all. I remember he kept begging me for much. He failed. So how can this kind of people be the leaders? I'm not against anybody, but let's face it. We have the right to talk. Let's correct ourselves. There is a lot of, frustration out there. And there's a law in psychology that frustration is aggression. People are frustrated, let's face it, and we should do something to cool it down, especially unemployed people, graduates without, some of these people are graduates. They have no job. Then they discover that they tear the certificate and say rubbish. So they should do something about corruption and those unnecessary wastage. If not, the society is going well, that is going to be very dangerous for everybody. So on this language issue, honestly, it has been a very old issue. If you read some of the reports, like you remember Professor Papua, Vis-à-vis mind, he brought the mother tongue projects in the whole Western in those days, and children were being taught in the mother's tongue so that we'll be able to grapple better with the concepts in life. Because if a child is being introduced in a second language, a complicated concept, it becomes double difficult. A lot of the children in the local areas here are very intelligent. But unfortunately again, whether we like to go on a endless diversion, and knowledge is accumulating. You won't have time. So these are some of the difficult